Well, Jovenshire stole Deadpool, so it looks like I'm stuck finding a game to review for this week. And I decided to go with a free game called Spartacus Legends. I always liked the idea of a gladiator fighting game, and this one even lets you purchase new gladiators and deck them out with gear. So let's see if this game will win my favor or be sentenced to a brutal death.
Have there ever before been such a dedication?
Spartacus Legends doesn't have much going in the way of story. You run a stable of gladiators, and it's your job to equip them with weapons and armor, then send them out to mess up other gladiators. It's a pretty simple concept, and the few bits of dialogue in this game aren't great. They seem to rely heavily on cuss words to make an impact, and there's one pretty funny curse that made me giggle a few times.
Jupiter's come.
However, the lines are repeated constantly and get annoying fast. But you know what? In a free game, you can't have it all. Obviously, you've got to make some sacrifices, and if you're not charging for a game, as long as the gameplay is good, I can forgive the lack of story and dialogue. You'll also probably notice that the graphics aren't that good, which you can also write off to it being a free game. I mean, there's some blood effects. They look like they're from 7 years ago, but you know, crappy blood effects can still be amusing, I guess. And they have slow motion for critical hits, but honestly, that gets old after a while. Except for this one time when I slow motion activated and then I stabbed someone in the balls. So that was nice. The cutscenes are terrible. It looks like you're viewing them through a thin layer of puke, and it's really nothing you care about seeing anyway. Alright, so in a free-to-play game, the one thing that you really gotta have is good gameplay. That's the big question. So what's the gameplay like in Spartacus? Well, it's pretty much 2D combat with the roll mechanic that gives it that kind of fake 3D aspect, which was cool back in the Tekken days, but not as impressive anymore. You've got a block, a heavy attack, a block breaker attack, the usual stuff, and it's kind of nice that pushing a direction in combination with a button yields a different attack. For example, if you press toward your opponent and Y, you'll get a stab with a little longer reach on it, whereas just pressing Y normally will yield an overhead attack that can hit a downed opponent. There's also various combos you can do with various chances to score a critical hit, but despite these various attempts at depth, the combat still kind of sucks.
Are you not entertained?
No, I am not entertained, and let me tell you why. Most of the fights against the computer boil down to using the long-reach stabby move to hit your opponent while they're taunting you for no apparent reason, or swinging their swords out of reach. There are some tough opponents that seem to dodge all of your attacks, but some button mashing on the quick attack usually takes care of these guys. Then the game unlocks random guys who are way higher rated than you. Their gear is just much better, and they bash you into a pulp in hopes you'll spend real money to buy stuff from the shop and have gear good enough to beat these legendary gladiators. Yeah, good try, game, but I think I'll keep my money, thanks. Look, I know in a free game you have to try to make money somehow, but I really hate the pay-to-win model. It just annoys me. Online play is equally frustrating, as most of the matchups are horrible mismatches. Either you'll be way above your opponent, or he'll be way above you, and someone is going to get stomped on. I almost think they do this on purpose, because if someone gets annihilated, you can actually execute that gladiator at the end of the fight. Then they either have to spend money to revive the gladiator or buy a new one. So what happens if you don't have the cash? Why, you can buy more, of course, for real money. In the end, the fights are less about skill and more about who has the better equipment and spent more to buy a better gladiator. Another problem with online play is that many of the matchups are super laggy, and you don't really know if your stab hit an opponent until a few seconds afterward, which makes fighting nearly impossible. And that's when you get into a game at all. I gave up on quick match because it just never matched me with an opponent. The only way I could fight in the online matches was to go to the arena, and even in those, the time I spent in the queue was way too long. The whole buying armor and weapons thing is a good idea in theory, but I was hoping for more customization in terms of color and stuff like that. Also, all the weapons of a specific type look the same. The good swords look like the crappy wood sword, the good dagger looks like the crappy wood daggers, etc. There may be some subtle differences, but not enough to make it interesting. I think in the end, the game's creators spent too much time thinking about how they could make a free game that also makes money, and not enough time just making the game fun. The fights depend more on the stuff you bought than how good you are at the game, the graphics suck, there's no story, and the combat isn't all that entertaining. The only redeeming factors of this game are that it's free to play, so you won't feel like you wasted money on it, and some of the finishing moves are mildly amusing. Spartacus Legends gets 3 Roman thumbs down out of 10. And also Jovenshire gets a thumbs down for suggesting I review this game in the first place. That's all for this week. Let us know what games you want to see reviewed in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.